Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jersey Joe Corner. It is brought to you by Big Heads Media. It is going to be a great hockey season coming right up. A lot of interesting things. Anchor.fm will help you start your podcast and get things rolling. It's going to be a lot smoother when you get the Anchor app, and it's so much easier to navigate. Even their online website at anchor.fm is very efficient, and you can do a lot of great things with it. And I stand by it myself. And I must say, it's time to say, let's go Devils.
With the first pick overall, the New Jersey Devils are proud to select from the U.S. program, Jack Hughes.
Let's go, baby!
Plays it across, Vatanen drives, score! Sammy Vatanen let it rip. It's a power play goal, and the Devils have opened it up.
Oh, my.
Nico walking in, shooting, score! Nico Hischier on the rush, ends it in overtime, and the Devils win it in Montreal.
Hello, everybody. This is your host, Jersey Joe, and your co-host,
Jersey Jim here for you for another edition of the Jersey Joe Corner. Here today on a cloudy, rainy Wednesday here in New Jersey.
and it kind of sums up how the first two games of the season of this episode is called Overreactions and Reality Checks. So basically today we're going to give our listeners the rundown of the past two games and how can this team flip things around.
Yeah, I mean, look, the first two games of the season have not been the greatest, except outside the first 40 minutes of Game 1, where the Devils were up 4-0 and then 4-1 after 40 minutes on the Winnipeg Jets Friday night. But from the third period on in Game 1 through Game 2 against the Buffalo Sabres, it was all downhill. And a lot of it, could be blamed on a coaching staff. A lot of it could be blamed on the players executing on the ice. A lot of fans overreacting, because we always have that overreaction Monday in the first week of the NFL season. But when is it time to hit the panic button? And it's 2 games too soon to do that. But in reality, maybe it really isn't.
Yeah, we bring up this point because, once the game, started to get out of hand after the first 2 goals when Corey began to cramp up a little bit in the game, the air in the building started to deflate more. After you switch in Blackwood, he comes in cold. He lets up another few goals after that, and the Devils missed a lot of opportunities in the third period where Jack Hughes and Gusev got a little too cute, or they misfired some shots where they didn't adjust the crosshairs enough to bank in the goal, and they were just one crossbar away from winning it in regulation with Miles Wood.
Yeah, Miles Wood was parked right out in front, and the puck came to him, and everybody in the building thought that Miles Wood had ended the game and given the Devils a 5-4 lead, but he had just hit their crossbar. And then, in a matter of fact, the only good thing that comes out of that game is the fact that the Devils get a point, because in reality, Blake Wheeler was on the doorstep with less than 5 seconds left in regulation and hit the post twice. And the Jets could have taken both points, and the Devils got no points out of it.
And it goes to show you that we have such a very advanced league where a game can turn on a dime and points can be taken off the table, or you can both get points on the table and still come up short. Um, we have a very interesting opponent coming in tonight in Philadelphia. They haven't played in quite a while. They got back from Central Europe, and now they're back to playing in their own barn. There's a lot going on tonight. Can you tell the viewers tonight about the lineup?
Yeah, so the Devils, for those who haven't seen the lineup, the Devils are going to go with Corey Schneider in goal tonight. And pretty much it's going to be the top line is being adjusted a little bit. You're going to have Hall, Heishier, and Gusev playing together. And then you're going to have Bratt on the second line with Zayd and Palmieri. And then Jack Hughes is flanked by Blake Coleman and Wayne Simmons to give him size. And then on the fourth line, it appears that Pavel Zacha and Jesper Boquist will be scratches tonight, as Miles Wood, Kevin Rooney, and John Hayden will be the fourth line for the Devils. And then over on defense tonight, a lot of changes there, as the Devils are actually going to put a ploy in playbook out of Nashville Predators and Montreal Canadiens move, because when PK Subban was there, he played with a righty on his left side. And since the left side is weaker for the Devils, Sammy Vatanen is going to go to the left side, play with Subban. We saw this a lot in the preseason, and it worked out really well. And I think it's going to work tonight. And you have Andy Green with Damon Severson. That was a pairing last year as well. And then Will Butcher will be on the left side with Connor Carrick, who draws in.
And for those who haven't seen enough of Connor Carrick, he's one of those really good bottom pairing right-handed defensemen who can be a really good two-way player in a pinch, and he can give you really good minutes when you need him to be serviceable. From what this means is Mirko Mueller is not in that starting six, and we have a lot of versatility in both ways with a guy like Carrick. And on that left side, it seems to be a little bit more stable versus like they had in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, after 40 minutes on Friday night, everybody was happy. It seemed like the fans were into it. People thought there was going to be a win, another opening night win, and then boom, it just turned around. I really didn't think they needed to adjust too much going into Buffalo because of the way they played. I just didn't like the line tinkering. You had guys playing together really well. They had scored goals, but scoring goals wasn't the problem. It's playing defense. And you can't have a guy like Marco Mueller in there who, let's just face it, he's just not as good
as he should be.
As he should be, and he's a liability back there like Andy Green is. But, again, we've talked about this. He's a captain. It doesn't look great if he comes out of the lineup. But these guys got to know their limitations and where they can play and how they can play. And it's funny to see that a guy like Ty Smith was named Player of the Week after he was one of the last cuts again for the Devils this year, because you're telling me that and we're back. Joe, you there? I think we've solved this technical difficulty.
Hey,
Oh, hey, I'm there.
hey, I'm here. Hold on a sec. There's a little crossover. Hey, just a little bit of technical difficulties, but it seems like that Ty Smith is having a good time getting adjusted to being a full veteran for his last full season in the WHL with the Spokane Chiefs. Seems like Ray Shiro's not regretting letting him get overcooked in the WHL.
No, it doesn't seem like that. I mean, you know, talking with somebody today, it was funny. He brings up the point. He's like, "Yeah, it looks like Ty Smith's getting back at the Devils for placing him down there." And I said, is he more of a liability back there than Marco Miller or Andy Green? I mean, the kid can play, but the fact that he's getting development is really good. I like what he brings. Later on, I mean, he'll be up here next year, and everything will be fine. It's just you got to play a defensive structure. You can't have guys running around all the time, and you got to get the puck out when you need to. And you just saw that when the Jets tied the game in the first game on Friday, and then a bunch of the goals against the Sabres on Saturday. It just, Devils just can't clear the puck.
And you just talked about in your last word on hockey article that you had mentioned that it's inexcusable to blow a 4-0 lead, and also it just takes the wind out of the fan base, and everyone after that overreacts. But at the same time, you have the tape to look at the flaws and what the Devils did, and watching what happened live versus Buffalo, you give too many apples to the Buffalo Sabres, and they make it to apple turnover. And this is a description I put in today's article on Pucks and Pitchforks about how the New Jersey Devils must adjust to beat the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, I mean, look, as you mentioned, the last word on hockey article entitled "Do the New Jersey Devils lack the talent to win on talent alone?" Yeah, it's inexcusable, and the coaching staff rightfully should have had this team prepared to play Saturday night. There is no reason for what happened Friday to linger into the next game. That was the perfect opportunity for the Devils to say, forget about Friday. Today's a new game. Don't worry what happened because you don't have a day to look at tape. And you could just go play hockey. But instead, it appeared that things were lingering. They didn't have confidence. I don't know what it was. Line tinkering, adjustments. But it appears that they're making the necessary changes heading into this game because, be honest, Devils are 0-2. The Sharks are 0-4. And, people are panicking out west because the Sharks are 0-4. And they have a right to do so.
And the Vegas Golden as well, they lost the game to the Boston Bruins, which the Bruins in theory are a more veteran-laden team that know how to steal wins. And Tuukka Rask, although he did get hurt at the end of the game, he still kept the team in it. And this is the kind of thing that we're hoping Corey Schneider can do the same thing. And hopefully Jack Hughes and Nikita Gusev don't get too cute holding onto the puck too long or being too fancy with the puck. This is one of the things I stress in the article.
Yeah, I mean, you want your goaltender to keep you in games, and you saw that in the Winnipeg game. Schneider made the saves when he needed to, and so did Brossoit. And Laurent Brossoit kept the Winnipeg Jets in the game. And when it was, I believe it was 4-2, the Devils were swarming in the offensive zone, looking to make it 5-2. The Jets survived that onslaught and were able to score to make it 4-3. And if the Devils score there, it's a different game. It really is.
And what I notice is, like, when I watch the highlights of the Flyers game from YouTube, from the game they played against the Chicago Blackhawks, there was a lot of even strength and odd man rushes where the Flyers were getting good clean breakouts, and then there was the same thing for the Blackhawks exchanging their fair share. And the Flyers aren't perfect when it comes to that structure. Sure, Travis Konechny can get open and shoot, glove side and score top shelf that way, but still, the Flyers don't always have that extra depth to hold a lead as well.
Oh no, they don't. I mean, look, Carter Hart played out of his mind last Friday against the Chicago Blackhawks, and he was one of the main reasons why the Flyers won. Travis Konechny had a nice goal in that game as well, and the Flyers are they were in Jacob Voracek's home country. They were playing over there, and it was a good game. It was a fast game. I think Crawford would have liked to have a couple of those goals back that they scored on, but the Flyers are a divisional opponent, and the Devils should be up for this game. It's division. It's on national television.
Doc Emrick is calling the game.
Doc Emrick's going to be there. Eddie O is going to be there. All eyes are on this game tonight because it's one of 3 games on the schedule, and in the United States, this is the main game. And the Devils really need to come out and play fast like they did in the first 40 minutes against the Winnipeg Jets.
I remember about 1 or 2 seasons ago, the Devils were playing against the Tampa Bay Lightning on the only NBCSN game that they had. It was a home game. And I remember the Devils came back from being down, I think it was 4-2 or something. And they came back and they won, I believe, in either overtime or a shootout versus Tampa Bay. And they won that game on national TV. And that crowd was nuts. And if the Devils can do something with Nikita Gusev and Jack Hughes gets clicking and Nico Hischier just takes it out on the Nolan Patrick crowd, I'm sure there's going to be some eyes turned the other way, thinking a lot of people will start liking how this team readjusts.
Yeah, and that's the key. It's readjustments. It's adjusting, looking at the lineups, playing the matchups. But the big thing, for me, in looking at everything, and a lot of people, especially on Sunday, looking at well, how come a guy like a Jack Hughes, how come a Gusev, a Boquist, how come they're playing on third and fourth lines, and Hines says, "Oh, I have 4 lines," but realistically, you don't, because guys like Hughes, Gusev, Boquist need to be playing in situations where they can succeed the most, not being put up against guys that are just going to grind against them and make it difficult out there. Hughes playing on a second line opens things up for him. He can't be going up against a Scott Lawton tonight or a James Van Riemsdyk. Yeah, he's got Wayne Simmons on one side and Blake Holman on the other side. But realistically, does that give him the best opportunity to succeed on the ice?
Honestly, when I watched him, versus the Winnipeg Jets, I felt his best. Even though he missed some chances, he was getting the immersion he needed, and I think Hines put him into a Vitamix and just mixed up too many of his wingers. Like, he put John Hayden on his right wing, and he took away Gusev. And to me, that was like, did I just lose 25% of my IQ just watching this move that Coach Hines did? Or was I misunderstanding something in the middle of the process?
You weren't misunderstanding anything. He talks about he talked about post game about how guys earn ice time out there, and if you're playing well, you'll have an opportunity to move up. But realistically, why was John Hayden on his wing? There was no reason for it. Yeah, Hayden was having a decent game, but you stop tinkering with stuff. things were working, and you tinker so far. And I made the comparison, the analogy in the article on Last Word on Hockey about how John Hines overcoaches like Joe Girardi overmanaged for the New York Yankees in Major League Baseball. That was one of my pet peeves for Girardi, was that he would just overmanage constantly and overthink himself when the simplest things were working, and he just changed them for no reason. There's no reason to change. You want to change the defensive pairings up because things aren't working. That's fine, but when the offense is clicking, there's no reason to change.
And I will put this from the Winnipeg game, is that when the Devils' first three lines were clicking, you had Coleman score 2 goals, including that insane backhanded flick of the wrist shot. That was amazing to see him able to do that. But then at the same time, you had the Gusev line on the first line or the second line score that opening goal in the game to help get the crowd in it. And it just seemed like, all the other lines tried to click. And then by the time it got through the second period or the middle of the second period, the Jets figured out the Devils' number and canceled them out for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and then the legs for the Winnipeg Jets, they found their skating legs after playing the night before. And even the night before, last Thursday, when they played the New York Rangers, they didn't look half bad either. And that team, was decimated by injuries on their back end. I mean, Morrissey is out. He wasn't playing against the Islanders. Didn't play against Pittsburgh last night. But Winnipeg dug deep and found a way to win. And that was the most disheartening thing about the Buffalo game, is that there was no one speaking out on the bench about how, come on, guys, we're still in this. When it was 7-2, I mean, clearly they were out of it. But when the game was still close, you didn't see guys on the bench, riling guys up, just saying, hey, we're still in this. Let's start playing our game. And they weren't making excuses. They were ready to play, and then you don't hear things out of their locker room about how, we're looking to play an easy, soft game. We're looking at guys, we're just watching the play. We're not looking to work hard. Well, wait a minute. Devils are supposed to work hard. Just because you have new toys in the toolbox doesn't mean you still you can't outwork the team. You're going to have to outwork teams. And you can't use the fact that, my defense, this and that. No, go out there, work hard, put the extra work in when you need to, and go win hockey games, because the Winnipeg Jets proved that last night. They beat the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah, Pittsburgh's banged up. But guess what? They're not making the fact that, hey, our defense is banged up, our defense stinks, as an excuse. They have players. They're going out and executing the system that Paul Maurice put in place. Now, why can't the Devils do that with John Hines behind the bench?
Honestly, with John Hines, this being year 4? I mean, there's no excuse to undermanage and not get on certain players' cases for not doing the right things at the right time. Or as I noticed when I was at the Winnipeg game, the Devils were playing outside the faceoff dots, and they were getting outsmarted and outbeat when the Devils are hemmed in their own zone in that game. The passer on the Winnipeg flank was able to beat the Devils defenseman by putting the puck right on Schneider's net or Blackwood, depending they have the puck. It just seemed like, there's not enough discipline utilized, in that game from a coaching standpoint. And when there are really good teams that have really good passers and really good shooters, they're going to take note of that. And that's what Buffalo did. They noticed these small little flaws in the game, and they just picked apart, just like a pulled pork sandwich.
Yeah, and, through 2 periods, you really didn't see those flaws. And one of those players in particular, PK Subban, really didn't see it either, because, he was shooting from everywhere. But then as the game got closer and closer and Winnipeg started picking things apart, you could see PK start to do too much because he felt like he had to carry his defense partner, and that carries over into game 2 against Buffalo. And Buffalo starts picking them apart. Devils are taking penalties that they shouldn't be taking because they're running around, following players, hooking, slashing, tripping, and then Buffalo scores 3 power play goals to open the game up. And
Reinhardt with a couple.
yeah, and the breakdowns just can't happen the way they happen. And when you put players like a Severson on a third line, when he's been used to playing top 4 minutes as a defenseman, and he's paired with Marco Mueller, you have guys that are trying to overcompensate for players that are liabilities out there. And sometimes you got to just let the players play and stop mixing things around. But the fact that you have training camp to instill this system, but it just seems like the lack of execution is a problem out there.
But with that being said, you have Kowalski, you have Coach Greer on the bench, and you think that they should be able to adjust right now, even though that these past 2 coaches have been around for like at least 2 seasons. And then you have Kowalski, who's been there. He understands a lot of the AHL guys who's been around this team, but a lot of the guys that are on this team are usually veterans for the most part. And so it's harder for them as a coach, you have to think a little bit quicker, and, it's a lot to digest when the first 2 to 3 games.
Yeah, and that's the biggest concern for me is the staff that's been put in place able to make the adjustments necessary to win hockey games or stop the bleeding. Mike Greer, Rick Kowalski. Kowalski has the most experience doing it because him being the AHL coach in Albany, and he's on the staff now. Elaine Nasruddin, and it's just so hard because they just seem to overthink too much, and they're seeing some things that we're not seeing. But it's plain and simple that the Devils need to focus on being a good defensive hockey team because that's what made them successful. And when you have a good defensive structure, it leads to offense and offensive opportunities to score goals.
And we talked about off air that we talked about if there was a new coach for the Devils. My first thought was back to a few years ago when so we're talking about coaching now. Jimmy, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so we're talking about coaching, everybody, and we were talking about off air that what would it be like if the Devils turned back the clock a few coaches ago after Peter DeBoer, and you and I were talking off air a few days back. Who would I have had after Peter DeBoer was canned? And I mentioned Guy Boucher.
Yeah, and that was a great coach because he did well in with the Ottawa Senators. In fact, he had him 1 game away from the Stanley Cup final, and then everything just went downhill. With the owner Erik Karlsson, just guys want to leave town. His system just ran dry, but he did well with Tampa Bay too with that same system, that defensive structure. And when you don't necessarily have top end talent, I'm not saying the Devils don't, but when you want to instill a defensive first structure, he's kind of the coach you think of the most because everybody remembers the 1 game where I believe it was Philadelphia and Ottawa, Philadelphia and Tampa, one of those teams where somebody was just sitting behind the net for about a minute and everybody was either clogging the neutral zone or, they were just trying to figure out a way where they were going to pass the puck and they couldn't get through anywhere.
We talk about, coaches like Larry Robinson in the past who have instilled the trap type game. And you know what? There are still teams to this day that are throwing in the trap, regardless how early in the game and how late in the game, that we, the fans, and we, the podcasters, etc., see, that Larry Robinson philosophy is still used to this very day. And a guy like Guy Boucher did very well with Switzerland in the Swiss League as a coach.
Yeah, he did. And, there's a reason why his name always gets brought up when it comes to coaching vacancies around the league. He's one of the more respected coaches in the league, and he's got a system that wins hockey games. And, he's taken 2 teams to the playoffs with it. Each time, I believe losing in the Eastern Conference Final. And, and sometimes that even run gets old, but that's because teams like to change coaches left and right. But, again, like you said, it's the 4th year of John Hines in New Jersey, and I know people like to overreact, but it does beg the question, have people wonder, when does Ray pull the trigger if the slide
and
continues?
I would think the trigger would be within, the 4th week of October, or before the 1st week of November. And of course, we talked off the air about how important Taylor Hall is and his contract situation to this team long term and near term. And we talk about how important Taylor Hall is with Jack Hughes, because they played on a line before in the preseason. We see how good they can be, as a force.
Yeah, and again, you have to keep in mind that, Taylor Hall has given his agent the green light to negotiate, but that all can change too if he sees his team continue to struggle. And, I was talking with somebody today, and they said, it would be a shocker to see Hines gone if things struggle by the end of October. And then I said to him, okay, so what happens if the Devils lose these next 2 games? Would you be shocked to see him gone before the weekend? And he's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think they would happen. But, stranger things have happened with the Devils. As we all know, Larry Robinson came in and was promoted to the head coach with 7 games left in the regular season at the end of the 1999-2000 season. So you really don't know. He did say that if the team did struggle, they didn't want to go through another John McClain situation. So your guess is as good as mine on when this would happen, but I would think if the struggle would continue, I wouldn't see Hines making it past October.
I remember listening to Devils Insiders a few years ago when Dan Rice went on the record. He did say that when it was Peter DeBoer who was struggling between November and December, that he got canned. And he did mention him getting canned within that time frame. And I remember I was visiting my grandmother in that time frame, and I remember getting a tweet because I think it was Tom Galletti who reported that firing of Peter DeBoer at that time. So, yeah, I remember he had someone on the inside.
Yeah, I mean, I will go out on a limb and say that if the struggle continues, that he's not making it past October, because you just can't let it slide. I mean, look, last year, Flyers made a coaching change. Chicago made a coaching change. St. Louis made coaching changes when their teams struggled. And how often do teams make changes when they struggle out of the gate, or how often do teams make changes because the system or the message isn't getting through clearly anymore, and maybe after 4 years it's time to make a change?
I'm going to go out on the record saying, we're here to provide constructive criticism and not a negative criticism like, most fans overreact.
Right.
This is a reality check. And when people don't, use the right source of reality checking, you're doing a disservice not only to yourself but to the team in the public. And we have our listeners abroad and domestic who follow us, and we want our team to win. We want them to get their all their thoughts together, and we want them to do well tonight. And of course, they got to play the Oilers with freaking Connor McDavid, who's one of the best goal scorers in the freaking league. I mean, you got to get your act together, and you got to get your defense straightened out.
Yeah, I mean, Connor McDavid is, coming into town tomorrow. He's got Leon Draisaitl with him. James Neal has 6 goals in 3 games. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Kassian. I mean, Mike Smith's their goalie. They beat the Islanders
James
last
Neal
night.
show.
The James Neal show, 4 goals, 2 of which were on the power play. He might have had 1 more on the power play. But still, a team you can't take penalties against. And Connor McDavid eats you alive. And James Neal right now is in the running for comeback player of the year, as rightfully should. But he was going to have a good year in Edmonton because since he's playing with McDavid and Draisaitl. But the Devils got to find a way to win a game tonight. And, I could point to, as I said in our last episode last year when things started to turn, I pointed to the Colorado game when the Devils had a chance to go 5-0. And instead, they're 4-1 and things started to go the opposite way. You can look back and say, oh, this game, that game. Well, if the Devils don't play to the expectations to where the fans and where people figured they would be, you can point to their collapse in the third period as the downfall of the season, because you're up 4-1 and there's no reason to blow a 4-1 lead in National Hockey League.
And we talk about, playing those 60 minutes. You can't take the gas off in the third period. You have to go play the green light, whistle the whistle. And there's no reason for the team to, stop doing well on the PK. There's no reason to take your eyes off a puck carrier. There's no reason you should have more than 2 guys staring at the same puck carrier and not having one of them leave their sticks out and be able to poke the puck loose and turn it into a offensive scoring chance. I mean, you talk about, a great defense creates for a great offense.
Yeah, and you had guys running around on the third period against Winnipeg. Gaps were missed. Players were out there longer than they should have been. Marco Mueller, Jack Hughes, and John Hayden were out there on the tying goal for 3 minutes and 8 seconds. That's way too long of a shift. And, Severson had a chance to get the puck out and you put it into a Winnipeg Jet player. And you could point to all these little things, but it comes down to execution on the ice, playing hard, working hard, playing 60 minutes. You can't play 40 minutes in this league anymore. Teams are just too good.
They're very fast, and you can't dump the puck like you used to before they added in hybrid icing. And I noticed in the first game that, you try to get the breakout pass to Jack Hughes, but still, there's going to be a defender waiting for him. You got to think a little bit differently now. This is not, the junior level where you can just pass the puck and treat it like it's a football game, where some guy's doing a fly pattern for a touchdown.
Yeah.
A guy's going to be on you.
Constantly. The guys are going to be on you. They're going to give you less time and space. They're going to make sure that when like a puck carrier like a Jack Hughes or a Gusev, they're going to, make sure they're going to make it hard for you to make that pass. You can't make that 1 or 2 extra moves you made in junior over in a KHL. It's off your stick, on your teammate's stick, and in the zone, and you're forechecking and you're going to get the puck and you're creating chances to score goals. And you saw that the Devils do that. They can generate offense off a forecheck system like that. And through the first two periods, that's how they scored the first two goals. They pressured the Winnipeg Jet defense, led to 2 turnovers, and Gusev scored, and then it led to the first Blake Coleman goal.
And honestly, that line should have been left alone. The line should have been left alone, like it was in the first period. It was really good, mixed with him and Jesper Bratt. And, they were doing a net mouth scramble, as Doc Emmerich will call it. And, I want Gusev to do one less deke in a situation that he gets the puck. And, we're here to help, our fellow followers. And if the players do listen, at least, adjustments, because we want them to succeed. And, we, the fans and whatnot, we want to see them, cut back on the silliness versus the Flyers. And especially with, Nolan Patrick have to fight someone tonight, and Wayne Simmons may have to fight someone in this game, or he gets a Gordie Howe hat trick. I think it's going to be one critical points in this game that you still can't do dumb penalties.
Yeah, I mean, look, Wayne Simmons is going to be itching to play well against his old team tonight. But the Flyers are still going to be without Nolan Patrick, so we're not going to see him versus Nico Hischier this time around. But the Flyers still have a tough defense to get through with Ivan Provorov, Justin Braun that they brought in over in the offseason, the trade for Matt Niskanen. They still got Goss to spare back there, and not to mention Carter Hart in net. I mean, the Devils have played relatively well in their history in Philadelphia against the Philadelphia Flyers. And they can play well tonight, too.
I remember seeing Miles Wood getting a hat trick versus the Flyers on TV. And that was one of my favorite games when he started playing against the Flyers. He became public enemy number 1. And when he does play against Philly, it is hard to lock him down because, he's a power forward. Sure, he doesn't have the best balance in the world, but he certainly has the speed and the grit and the tenacity to wreck a game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have my issues with Miles Wood, as everybody does. You see that, he still takes dumb penalties and makes the boneheaded play here and there. But, his speed is a weapon, and he can become an agitator. And he can get under the Flyers' skin tonight. And he can do that tomorrow against Connor McDavid because and that's what he's good at. But he's got to learn to harness that speed and that talent and stop making them boneheaded plays because, again, against the Jets, there's no reason to cross-check the guy from behind into the boards in front of the Devils bench. I mean, there was no reason for it. And he looks at the referee like the referee's got 3 heads on why he's calling a penalty. Dude, you cross-check the guy. I mean, that was a dumb play. But Miles Wood has the ability to, agitate, get physical, start some things. Like, that's what you want those kind of guys to do. That's why you got a Wayne Simmons there. That's what I didn't see out of the Devils when they were down against Buffalo. They were hitting a little bit, but there wasn't any of that. All right, we're mad. We're going to start coming back. We're drawing that energy. You need to get that energy from those types of players to get you back in the game.
Also, you got to protect Taylor Hall. I mean, that hit from Buffalo was unnecessary. That was a charging call that should have been called. And, the Flyers are going to try and take liberties on any of our players because they are going to be scared with how good and talented, guys like Jesper Bratt and Pavel Zacha looked pretty good in the first 2 games. I mean, I know he got 1 goal, but he's been doing okay in the faceoffs he has a chance when he gets the puck. He can be a really good power forward.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see any issues with Zaka's game through the first 2 games. To be honest, I thought that they would send him down to Albany for a few games just
Albany,
for
you mean
conditioning.
Binghamton?
I mean Binghamton. I'm sorry, I'm stuck on Albany. I remember Albany
It's
forever.
Okay, it's upstate
But
New York.
yeah, so back to Binghamton for a couple of games just for conditioning because he had missed most of the preseason and training camp. That didn't happen. So Zaka's getting his legs through now, and this is his training camp. So hopefully he starts to come around. I'm interested to see how Hayden and Wood and Rooney play. Rooney, I feel, is good because of his penalty killing. He's like a John Gibbons type player. And
Brian Gibbons, yes.
Yeah, Brian Gibbons type player. And so that's that factor. But again, I'm not sold on Zajac playing that second line center role.
Yeah.
That's where I'm not. I continue to question why Hughes is on that third line. Like, you drafted him number 1. You know what he can do. He needs to be put into a position to succeed and playing
needs the responsibilities.
Exactly. And he's not getting those responsibilities. And I feel like he's being babied along like Nico Hischier was babied along in his first year. And now we can see why Nico, when he's given that responsibility, we see the player that he is.
And we know that, Travis Zajac is not the in the whole team. He's a bottom 6 center for a reason. He's not as fast as he used to or ever used to be. But you have a guy that is faster, younger, and very smart in getting open. And it's just a matter of time when Jack gets that first point. When Jack gets that first point, he is going to click.
I mean, how many chances did he have in the first game against Winnipeg to get his first goal, get a first point? He was making things happen for himself against the Winnipeg Jets. And to be honest, when the Devils are blown out 7-2 to the Buffalo Sabres on Saturday night, and he was a -1, that's a good night.
Still a good night for a kid who's a pure goal scorer, assist maker. I mean, the kid has speed. He's very smart. The coach has to trust him and allow him to create the momentum and eventually, create chaos in his opponent's zone.
Exactly. And that's the name of the game, is creating chaos, creating turnovers, limiting time and space. How are you going to match up? Because I'm going to tell you right now, when you see a player like Jack Hughes out on the ice, Paul Maurice, I saw it when I saw the lineup on Friday night for the Jets. I was like, oh, he's going to match the Scheifele line against Hughes' line. Even though Hines was trying to keep him away from, Line and Connor, Maurice saw that he could exploit that matchup, and he did.
And Hines obviously tipped his hand, by changing it. And it's kind of like playing the game of chess. And, you make one small move that pretty much ruins your whole game.
Yeah. And, changing the lines too often and trying to play the matchup game instead of trying to play your game, doesn't make sense. And when you tip your hat, you're trying to play behind the 8 ball all the time, the outcome is never there. Look, the Bruins, as I saw last night against the Vegas Golden Knights, it was a great hockey game. But when they went down 2-0, they didn't sway from their style of game. They kept playing their game. Their top line showed up, scored, and they won the game. But they didn't sway from their style of play. They were still hard to play against. They rolled their 4 lines. They just kept hitting. They brought the energy. and they got the victory and the 2 points.
And Brett Marchand got a nice little snipe off the post and in.
Yeah, now it was early in the second period. Pasternak flips it off the boards and goes in right to Marchand, and he scores. And the Devils can do things like that. And they did things like that against Winnipeg. And the goals that they scored against Buffalo did the same things. It's just doing those little things right on the ice, limiting time and space, creating your own opportunities, and not watching the puck and not watching what others do, and be successful in the system that's been put in place. And when you don't have a system and guys are running around, and guys are looking at others for them to lead or for them to create opportunities, you're not going to have success in this league.
One of the things that I always say is the team needs to come off like they did in the first game, all the way through 3 periods, but also they have to play a little bit tighter, but they shouldn't have to pinch on the offensive zone with the defenseman on the right side, moving up too quickly. And what I noticed about PK Subban when he's on the retreat, that he should not give like 3 New Jerseys, which is about 9 extra seconds of space. Meanwhile, someone's going to shoot a nice little flick of the wrist, a wrist shot on net, right on Schneider or Blackwood. You know, you got to take away that time and space because there are so many good elite shooters in this league versus the last 10 years.
Yeah, and, you know, when you have a guy like McDavid out there, when Eichel's out on the ice, when you have a Scheifele, a Connor, an Ehlers, a Laine out there, you want to limit their ability to the outside and don't bring them to the middle of the ice. The Devils did that for, you know, a period of time against the Jets. They were able to limit what Scheifele was doing, what Connor was doing, what Ehlers was doing.
Laine himself.
Yeah. You know, Laine was, you know, he had chances to score, but he didn't. Again, granted, it was the second game.
And the Devils in their history versus Connor McDavid have been, knock on wood, have been able to keep McDavid's damage to a minimal.
Yeah, if you can limit 97 to a goal, an assist, that's it. You're doing a good job. Let the other guys beat you. Don't let 97 beat you. You got to let the other guys beat you. Okay, chalk it up to the other guys. But if you let 97 beat you, then you're not doing your job.
Yeah, it honestly goes for itself. Like, you know, if Taylor Hall's line can help shut down the McDavid line and the Hughes line can limit the second scoring line for the Oilers with Nugent Hopkins, and you're able to control the other 2 lines, you know, the keys are there for you to possibly get a victory. Regardless of Mika Koskinen is in net, you still have to treat every goalie as if you're going against a Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah, and like we were talking about last week on the last episode, Laurent Brossoit was a good goalie for Winnipeg Jets, and you saw why he was a good goalie. I mean, he kept them in the game till the very end, and they won the game because of Brossoit's play. Now, regardless of who you see tomorrow night, it could be Koskinen or it could be Smith. But you have to treat him like, hey, doesn't matter who's back there. We got to put the puck in the net. It doesn't, regardless if we haven't seen him or not. We just got to go out and play our style. We don't have to be worried about, you know, what people are thinking. Let's just go out there and execute our game plan. Let's not worry about what they're doing. Let's worry about what we're doing. And that's the mindset the Devils have to take into this game tonight.
Yeah, and we got to – well, back to the Flyers. You know, the Devils always play a physical game, and it's usually a penalty-ridden game for both teams, and there's usually a plethora of power plays. And when you have a kid like Jack Hughes who's on like that first pairing for the power play, that says a whole lot that John Hines thinks about. And you have a kid like Taylor Hall on his line. This is a good feeling to have, especially with PK Subban, right behind you.
Yeah, I mean, the top power play unit for the Devils looked really well. They were moving the puck. Subban was letting them rip. And, Hughes is getting those minutes because, I guess they're compensating for the minutes he isn't getting playing on the third line. That'll be interesting relationship to watch as it goes on. Could it be another Matthews Babcock thing? But, the Devils power play has to click. And they had opportunity. They had opportunities in Buffalo to get back in the game on a power play, and they didn't.
And this is one of those games for Nico Hischier and Wayne Simmons to take it to the Flyers in their home opener and stick it to them and take that crowd out early and often. And you don't want to hear that goal horn. And we talk about goal songs and everything, but you don't want to hear the Flyers goal horn. It is one of the most irritating I've ever heard besides the New York Rangers.
I don't know. The Washington Capitals goal horn is pretty irritating, too.
Oh, well, Colorado does have a very irritating one. And I would have to put Columbus as tied for first place.
Yeah, Columbus with that cannon. Yeah, that gets a little annoying, too. But, yeah, back to tonight's game. The Flyers, they're tough. They're physical. It's going to be a battle. It's their home opener. The crowd's going to be crazy.
Apparently, Flyers fans are always crazy.
Always crazy. Apparently, now they got a rage room in their arena. They can just break stuff. I don't know. ECW. I don't know. People out there, you know what I'm talking about. ECW days in Philly. The place is going to be nuts. I've been there before, see games. Place is crazy. Devils got to take the crowd out of it. It's good to be on the road for this one. Just go in there, execute, play your style, get the first goal, get a good shift. Even if you don't score on the first shift, get a good shift. Be in their zone. Attack the puck. Make them start thinking out there. Drive the play. Have zone time. Doing those little things will lead to goals, and it will take the crowd out of it.
Doing the net mouth scrambles, and the puck is loose. It shoots, scores! Jack Hughes gets his first NHL goal.
That would be nice to hear tonight. That would be great to hear, to have Jack Hughes score a goal, get a dirty goal, get a gritty goal. They don't have to be pretty. Sometimes your first ones aren't pretty, but you're gonna get grinded out. Simmons is gonna look to have a big game at the Revenge Tour on Twitter, as it's called. #Revenge Tour. James Reimer had his revenge tour last night against the Florida Panthers. He put on a show. So maybe it's time for Wayne Simmons to do the same thing, because it seems like guys playing against their former clubs this season so far are doing pretty well. So look for Wayne Simmons to have a night.
And then I remember Game 6 Eastern Conference Finals. I was at that game with Henry Gets Over and looking at the replay with Doc behind it, and he talks about Podkowski loose and net mouth scramble, shoots, score, Henry, it's over.
It's over.
The goose is loose. The puck is loose. Gusev shoots, scores. Nikita Gusev with goal number 2 on the year. The Devils are up. I want the goose to be loose, and I want to hear Devils fans on social media doing goose memes and do goose chants the next game tomorrow.
Yeah, and look, you could talk about, look at his first goal in the NHL. It wasn't pretty. Brassois overcommits. The puck's loose, bang in front of the net, puck's into the open net. Goal.
And he's out of his own zone.
Yeah, and they were attacking. So Devils got to attack tonight. Got to bring the pressure. They have a job. They know what their job is. But again, a lot of questions are going to be raised again if pick up at least a point tonight.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be a lot of eyebrows being looked at this game. And, I wish Jesper Boqvist was playing in this game. And, watching him versus Buffalo versus a lot of those big bodies, physical players, he could easily have been in this lineup. Nothing against Rooney or any of those bottom pairing guys, but I would rather have Boqvist play and let him play out for the whole week and see how he does. And, he's one of the guys I contributed a lot of articles about in a lot of articles recently for Pucks and Pitchforks. And I believe in a kid like him because, when you have another fellow Swede like Jesper Bratt, who's very smart, very shifty, who can score, a lot of assists and goals, you also have a really good offensive defenseman in Sami Vatanen who can do wonders and take pressure off Subban in a game like this.
Yeah, I mean, I liked what Boqvist brought to the table Saturday night. I mean, he had that one shift in the Buffalo zone where he took the puck from the defender. He made a little move to the middle, and then he shot it, and he hit the crossbar. And if that puck goes in, it's a different story. So, I really didn't see what the problem was with his game, why he has to come out of the lineup. And this was my feeling. And, watching a lot of hockey and watching the pattern of young players being treated the way they've been over the years is my feeling was when people were putting, Boqvist on fourth line, I said, what is this? So why are you putting him on the fourth line for? That does him no good. Well, at least he's playing. Well, no, because if he's on the fourth line and then he has to come out every other game, that does him no good. So if he was going to be on the fourth line to begin with, you should have just sent him back to Sweden so we could play some more and develop.
For me, this is one of those issues that I have with Heinz's thinking, his rationale. And I do think that there's a coach in the Devils system or a possible coach that would take over if, something were to happen. I hate, barking up the tree, but, there comes a time where there's rationale that needs to be laid out with these, plans. And we've seen how Nico Hischier has done. He's got a face-off percentage of 70%, according to the Devils webpage. You have Blake Coleman's got 50% face-off wins. Zajac, same. Boqvist, 50%. Jack Hughes, almost 47%. And there's a lot of great face-off winners in this team. But Boqvist needs to be put out there more. And if you're going to have him sit more often, you might as well send him back home to Sweden.
I completely agree with that. And, you can't have a kid like that who's skilled and gifted not play. And if he's just going to be dressed in press box every other game, and we're going to go through the same thing that we had with Adam Larson, then it does him no good. He needs to be playing in situations that make him successful. And there's a reason why you kept him here through training camp and through the end of the preseason, because he was doing the things you asked him to do to make this team. And if you didn't think he was the player that you thought he was going to be, then maybe you should have sent him back. But he's here for a reason.
He's here to be part of this team and make it dynamic. And, we support Ray Shero and Tommy Fitzgerald 100% of the time. And this is the time where they need to send John Hines the message where you just can't sit out a kid like him. He made the team fair and square. He should not be treated like, Rudy in that movie. So, I mean, this is a completely gifted player.
Yeah, and this was my issue with DeBoer when he was here with the team. And a lot of people, noticed the same thing, is that when these young players, they struggled, and he would take it out on them in the locker room. They would sit them. And, I have a feeling that, Hines is going to get that message from Shero and Fitzgerald to be like, this guy, we signed him. He's an entry-level contract, but he's here for a reason. We didn't send him back. We're not burning a year of his contract for this. He needs to play. And, this is where, maybe he has those guys, that he just wants to constantly play. Talking about Hines here. And, maybe that is one of those where it leads to his downfall. And again, we're not here to tell you
What's going to happen.
What's going to happen. It's never a good thing to talk about coaches getting fired. We wish that upon nobody. However, it's the reality of a situation that.
And I believe that the tea leaves are kind of showing their true flavors.
Exactly.
Because that's how it's starting to boil a little bit.
Yeah, and you can't have guys in and out of the lineup. The message can't be getting lost somewhere in the locker room. You can't be coming out and saying guys are looking to have an easy game. We want to play soft. That doesn't cut it. And, there's
Honestly,
some guys out there that I think.
This reminds me of when Don Cherry talked about, when he got brought up as a coach, you get hired to get fired.
Oh, yeah.
We hate seeing that as fans and podcasters. It happens, every other year. We've seen a bunch of firings happen last season and the year before.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I can compare it to what was going on with Vino with the Rangers the one year when they let him go. Hey. People were calling for it early on because it just didn't fit the system well. And, there's some guys that I have in mind that I could see potentially. Jimmy? Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. So as I was saying, there's some guys that in my head that I potentially can see filling a role, maybe on an interim basis or maybe taking over basis, that help this team get to the next level.
And you were telling me about one of the guys on The Athletic, Shapiro, put out an article recently that showed the odds of guys resigning and possibly getting fired. Jim Montgomery, 4-1.
Yeah, Jim Montgomery in Dallas, 4-1 odds, the first coach to be fired this year. Because Dallas has the talent, and how many times are you gonna, is your CEO or your CFO or your owner gonna come out and give these guys a kick in the behind? You saw it last year. Dallas, Ben and Sagan get called out by, Jim Lights, and all of a sudden they start getting their acts together. But how many times can you do that before that gets old?
And then you go on from there. You show me that Hines has a 9-1 betting odds of being re-signed or fired. And if the pressure cooker is really heating up, today and tomorrow are one of those games that basically turns up the heat on him to make the smart moves.
Yeah, exactly. You can't have a guy go 0-3, 0-4 out of the block, and there not be consequences. This team has to play good hockey this year and tonight. And, he's gotten the tools finally from the general manager to play smart hockey. And they've built the team for his style of play. And like we harp on Jesper Boquist again. But if this kid is one of those guys that's going to be in and out of lineup, then maybe a guy like a Nate Bastian or a Michael McLeod could have just filled that role just as easily.
Yeah, and to be fair, to our Devils listeners and our new listeners, we like to try and keep things as positive, but at the same time, this is a reality check. There's a reason why I call this overreactions and reality checks, is because, it's important that, we keep our fellow Devils crowd out there, not only at the games but also on social media and in regular life as well. Not to be so negative. I mean, we try and shine a light where there is brightness. There just has to be that time where there is that one change that kind of clears things up, and then players get the message sent. Maybe Hayden gets sent down, and maybe you know, this new takeover, will do a better management.
Yeah. And, again, we don't want to be doom and gloom. We don't want to be negative. We're not trying to be negative. We're trying to bring you some analysis here on how we're viewing the game. And we always want to stay positive, but sometimes you have to be critical. And some of the best, people that I've talked to around the league and just in general when talking about hockey are the ones that notice and pick up the little details that aren't being done, and you're critical of your team. And, watching this team growing up and now writing about this team and writing about other teams, it's easy to, always try to spin positive and look at the easy negatives. But when you're not critical, you're doing a disservice to your job and to, giving the people the correct information. Not everything is all sunshine and roses. Not everything is an overreaction, because when a team is unprepared to play and get blown out 7-2, there's a problem.
It also made me think about the time when Ilya Kovalchuk lost the puck versus Buffalo in a shootout. And I was so fired up and so angry, like every other fan that day, that many years ago. I think it was 2010, 2011 or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. That wasn't that the McLean year.
Yeah. And he got fired within a few months or something like that. They just threw him in the middle of the transition that would have been the next year, 2011 to 2012. And I just remember I ran down the stairwell like everyone else, frustrated after that loss, and I was like, ugh, like really, Kovalchuk? And we all threw our potty mouths into that stairwell that day because we just couldn't wrap our heads around such a bad shootout. And for us as fans now, and podcasters, we want to see the players not get too cute in different ways of the game, but we want them to succeed, which is kind of hard to do. But when it's executed right, things like in that Winnipeg game, if you flip that, the backhanded pass that Hughes was doing, or Goose that was holding the puck too long, then trying to shoot, maybe we would have had this team with minimal of 2 points already.
Yeah, and you going back to the McLean year for a minute and that Kovalchuk. I remember I went to a game, and my parents hadn't been to a game for a while, so I got tickets and we went. And that was the night that John McClain decided to healthy scratch Ilya Kovalchuk to send a message, which was his downfall. And I just don't want to see, and it's probably not going to happen. And the Devils have learned that mistake, and they probably will never make that mistake again. But you never know, would a guy like a Jack Hughes be scratched just because to send a message? I don't think so.
Go ahead.
But you don't know. I said, I don't think he would be a healthy scratch at a point or ever come out of the lineup. But then again, I don't know with this coaching staff.
It's hard to predict, though, because every time, Amanda Stein writes something with a new lineup, it's like, what is Heinze thinking? And for me to infer, it's like a big, mystery soup of the day. Like, how, who is actually going to be in there? Like, if I threw in Coach A versus Coach B, maybe Boqvist would be playing at least 3 games already.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think he should have been in the starting lineup against the Winnipeg Jets. Just because what he brings and just the style that the Jets play, it's better suited for Boqvist than a team like Buffalo, coached under Ralph Kruger. But, like a team like Philadelphia, for instance, maybe having a more bottom-heavy type players in the lineup
versus Philly.
Versus Philly suits them better than having more skill when they play a team like Edmonton.
You basically have those guys as your as your Swiss guards that go in, no pun intended, because they are your mercenaries that go up against these tough guys. And because Radko Gudas is on the Capitals, you still have to deal with all the other Flyers gritty players on the bottom 6.
Yeah, and one of those guys is James Van Riemsdyk. And yeah, well, he might be on the back end of his career. He's still a big body out there that's going to occupy the front of the net that you're going to have to move and you're going to have to get dirty with in the area in front of the goaltender, Corey Schneider.
And when I was watching replays of how, when the Flyers get close to the box, when you don't box them out, it gives them chance for rebound goals. And then, looking at the last 2 games that the Devils had, after the second period going forward to the next game in Buffalo, the Devils didn't get those chances. They only had 2 goals, and there wasn't really much to write home about after that.
No, it wasn't. I mean, after the Palmieri goal to make it 2-1, the floodgates open. I mean, it was we'll call it a bad goal by given up by Blackwood. It hit a couple of bodies in front. He was pretty much square to the puck, but then it hit a couple of sticks, and that's all she wrote there. And then from there, it just went downhill. But the Devils, they have to work hard tonight. You're on national TV. All eyes are watching you. You cannot have a stinker of a game. You have to come out and show the world that you're not as bad as what happened in Buffalo.
And to quote Rodney Dangerfield, I get to heck with it. I get no respect. I'm just doing the clean version.
Right.
And you want to go out there from the first face-off. You win that first face-off. You take the offensive zone cleanly on entry zone levels. And when you do get the extra man advantage, you should cash in like you are going to the bank. And this is what the Devils need to do, is just pound the offensive zone every single time they get in on the Flyers, and have guys like Wayne Simmons, or if Miles Wood is playing, or Coleman's up front, you want to take away Carter Hart's eyes. You there, Jimmy?
I'm here.
So what I was just trying to say is that, with the guys that we have in the lineup, you want to take away the sights of the Flyers goaltending and Carter Hart. You still want to be creating traffic all around.
Yeah, and you have a guy like Simmons that can do that. You have a Miles Wood in front that can do that. You have a Palmieri that can do that. And one of the things I've noticed, and maybe they need to take a play out of the playbook of the Toronto Maple Leafs, because I like what they're doing on their power play, is they switched Marner and Matthews to their wings, their off wings, where they can shoot their one-time shot. But what they did is they moved Tavares into the high slot area, and they can make that quick pass to the middle and then back and forth, the little give and go. Instead of just running a full umbrella, they have a guy in front and then a guy in the slot, which makes life hard for the opposing team because you don't know which guy to cover and who's going to get the puck and which way it's going to go.
One of the things that I noticed now, talking a little bit about Nashville style, which suits New Jersey style, is that you have these offensive defensemen, and then you have these really good wingers that can move the puck and create traffic. You can have someone like a Jack Hughes who thinks in nanoseconds, but also can pass to a guy like a Taylor Hall or maybe a Jesper Bratt, and that next winger can absolutely crash the slot, which is between the dots and above the goalie crease, and score a goal like that with a lot of speed. And we saw that when Nashville did it on their opener.
Yeah, and that was one of the teams that were struggling out of the gates too, the Nashville Predators, and they got a big win last night against the San Jose Sharks, who after an 0-4 start, who signed Patrick Marleau to a 1-year deal. I'm not surprised by that because it made the most sense. And when he got bought out by Carolina after being traded there from Toronto, it just made the most sense that he was going back to San Jose. His family's there. He's been working out with the team. So, but you gotta get gritty goals like Nashville did, and Columbus is on the board now with a win. They beat the Buffalo Sabres team in overtime. So a lot of teams aren't winless anymore, and you saw it last night. You teams that you think were undefeated, unbeatable, whatever, they lost. Detroit lost after their hot start. So this is a big game for the Devils. I'm not saying it's a turning point in their season, but this is a big game. Get on the board, get a win, get some confidence, and then carry that confidence in to Edmonton tomorrow night. And maybe not all is forgiven or all is lost on the slow start, but now you're back to 500 and you look at things a little differently. But you still have to wonder in the back of your mind how much of it is really turned around.
And we talked about on our prediction show that, you want to see them 94 points or more, and I had a little bit higher because I didn't think, we would be down 0-1-1, but still, the Flyers could be, still thinking that they're enjoying themselves back in Prague. Meanwhile, they're back in Philly, physically. The Devils are ready or should be ready and take it out all on Philadelphia. All their frustrations. They should be playing a lot cleaner game. They should be smarter. They should be about how they handle the puck and how they hit the body, from the shoulder to the hip to the arm, cleanly, and not hit anyone in the back of the numbers because, you can't do what you did versus Buffalo because, that's exactly how you lose a game.
Yeah, and you want to be smart with the puck. You want to be disciplined. You want to take stupid penalties. You want to play the right way. I mean, penalties are going to happen. You can't be clean every game, but limit the dumb penalties. Play smart. Attack. Don't sit back if you got a lead, and just make sure that Corey Schneider is hydrated enough so he doesn't cramp again.
Or drink more pickle juice.
Right, you could do that, but it still astonishes me that in the first game of the regular season, a goalie's cramping after a month of training camp, multiple preseason games. And he had to leave because of cramps. That's just not a good look on the staff.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if it was the nutritionist or it was Corey Schneider himself. I mean, I was at that game. One of my buddies was texting me nonstop, like, what is going on with Corey Schneider? I asked someone next to me to look up what happened to Corey, and it was like injury alert. And I was like, injury? Then I found out afterward, Taylor Hall said after the game that it was through Amanda Stein that Corey was cramping, or at least it looked like he had cramps. So, this is why we need our potassium.
Yeah, and again, he didn't play much in the preseason, but still, when the team puts out a tweet, and not to knock, the guys that put the news out on Twitter, I'm not trying to do that. But when they put out a tweet and says, hey, Schneider had cramps, we got it under control, he didn't get under control because he had to leave the game. If he had it under control, he would have been able to finish the game. And that's just not a good look either. And apparently last night with Rask, it appears to be some sort of dehydration. Could be an injury. They weren't really specific. Coach Cassidy wasn't specific on that. But they're more leaning towards some dehydration there too. So again, these guys stay hydrated when you're playing some hockey.
It just seems, like with the social media aspect that, you want to be, clear to the fans that you're not going to misinform them, but you got to be, clear about what exactly happened. And, we can't afford to have guys cramping in the middle of a game or doing silly things that should have been taken care of with the natural supplements that their body needs.
Yeah, and, Schneider was asked about it. Is this going to be a lingering issue? Well, does he think it's going to affect his play? He said, no, it's not going to be a lingering issue. He's got it under control. So hopefully we don't have to worry about that tonight when the Devils play the Flyers on NBCSN at 7:30. Probably a little I would say puck drop, probably maybe around 7:45 with all player intros, all that stuff. So, Devils, they got to get a win tonight, and that's the bottom line.
And the exact bottom line that I'm looking at is after, getting embarrassed at home, getting embarrassed in Buffalo, it would be picture perfect to take out the whole entire Philly crowd, just, score often, play smart defense, clog up the Flyers on the breakout, and then, clear out your defensive zone. Don't allow any stupid icings, just be smart, managing the game within the game, because this is more about attrition than anything.
Yeah, like you hit the nail on the head. Play 60 minutes. It's a more of attrition out on the ice. You're not going to win the game in the first period. Don't burn yourself out, but play smart hockey. Get pucks deep, cycle, shots from the point, create traffic in front, and get the gritty goals.
And this is going to be this super gritty game that might give people a little of the old school hockey. For those who don't know, there are still guys that are going to throw the gloves down and still, want to bring that old school play back. But at the same time, there's going to be a hybrid where it's going to be more skilled than it is going to be about physicality. But it's going to be one of those games that, fans are going to get riled up because, there are certain players that you don't like, or other fans on other teams, don't like on your team, vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, I expect a fight or two tonight. I really do. I'm not going to lie. I expect a fight or two from the Devils and Flyers. Simmons mixing it up a little bit wouldn't surprise me. But, you just got to get after it from puck drop. Devils no morning skate today, so we'll find out, probably before the game what's going on. You'll see the warm-up lines. Everybody saw the lines from the last two practices. They're not changing. So you got to hope that whatever message the coaching staff put in over the last 2 days was enough to get this team motivated and go out there and play a good hockey game.
And we, expect this team to, kind of claw back, but you also want to see them come off to a cleaner start, defensively. And, we want to see guys like Connor Carrick, Will Butcher, get to shoot the puck more and, start leading the artillery, and start gaining, the offensive zone, and then break down the wall, which is Carter Hart. And you want Carter Hart to begin to fall apart, and you can have the troops advance into his building, and you can start scoring. This would be more like, Rise of Nations, if you think about that as a computer game.
Yeah, and if you can get to Carter Hart early, then his confidence is not there, and the Devils can move in and score more goals. But if Carter Hart can make those big saves early on, and he's the one that able to set the tone, and it's going to be a tough night to find space and real estate in front of his net. Just again, it's about playing smart defensive hockey. You harp on it. Defense leads to good offense. That leads to good scoring. You preach it to. I've been told about this since I was a kid playing hockey. Be smart in your own zone leads to a good breakout pass, which leads to smart offense, which leads to pucks in the net, and that's all you got to do. And when everything else fails, just throw it in the air and get it out of your zone so you get a change.
And one of those things is, one of the new rules is that, if you shoot it from behind center line, and you hit it into the goalie's area, you're not allowed to change. It's basically a new rule that a lot of teams are getting used to, and we pretty much not in favor of right now because it's still a new addition of rules from the off season, and there's a lot to learn, going on these amendments from the off season. But it's the teams that play now are having to relearn things, and then it's going to be one of those when you cross the center ice, you have to carry the puck more than ever.
Yeah, and listening to SiriusXM today, they were talking about the Devils in the game, and Tyler Mataraz had a it was asked if he had to pick a team to win tonight. He picked New Jersey. Boomer felt the same way. Just feels like Jersey's prime for Jersey to set things up tonight. So we'll see what happens. I mean, look, again, you and I both harped on this throughout this entire episode. It's about playing smart and playing good defense because that's what they need to do. And that's what's let them down in the first two games. And you can't be playing from behind again. And because it just takes a toll.
And one of those things is that, I'm taking a look at the shots leaders on the Devils right now. Taylor Hall is in first place with 9 shots on goal. Meanwhile, Coleman and Gusev are tied for second place in shots at 6. And then you have Palmieri and Wood at third with 5 goals apiece. And then you have Hischier and Subban tied with 4 shots. And then you have Simmons and Hughes with 3 along with Will Butcher. It seems that, they're able to try and share the puck enough, but for our little special star center, there's going to be a time where I can quote Kurt Gowdy from Fever Pitch or whatever that movie was about the Cape Cod League. He goes, it just needs a little sunshine to help break the ice. It was called Summer Catch.
Yeah, that was a good movie, by the way.
Yeah, and I think that little sunshine that help breaks the ice could come tonight or even tomorrow, but we want it to happen sooner than later.
All right, so can you just read how many shots Subban has again?
Jack Hughes has only had 3 shots, tied with Will Butcher and Wayne Simmons.
So, and how many did Subban have?
Subban has 4.
Okay, so in the first game, Subban was shooting the puck a lot, but not in the second game, not so much.
No, because Buffalo anticipated he was going to shoot the puck, and they knew that if they got a stick on him early, they would create more offense on him because, they know he shoots the puck a lot.
Right. So again, Jack Hughes and his shots on goal and his ice time are related. The less ice time you have, the less opportunity is to put the puck on net. And you got to have him Palmieri, Hall, Heischer, all those guys have to be up there as top leaders for shots on goal.
And also, like, with the Flyers, you can't let Giroux or Voracek or any of their centers get comfortable with the puck and distributing it. And Travis Konechny is going to try and do what he exactly did back in Prague, which was get the puck, sneak it beyond, the enemy blue line and shoot it from right outside the dots.
Yeah, and don't forget about Sean Couturier. Still, James Van Riemsdyk's a danger. Shane Goss to spare on the back end. We went over the lineup before. But the Devils have to limit those high danger opportunities in front of Corey Schneider. Keep pucks to the outside. They want to shoot from the outside, some sharp angle. Let them go ahead, as long as it's not in the slot area. Because inside the high danger area, they're going to score. If you keep them to the outside, most likely they're not.
Well, also the thing is, like, you also got to tie up the other team's sticks in your own defensive zone, because you don't want them to, be able to create that extra rebound, and you don't want them to cash in on those dirty goals. You want to keep them off the board as much as possible and as much as often, because those Flyers fans do get overzealous, and you don't want, to hear that goal horn throughout that game as much as, they have played it against us in the years past.
Yeah, and, a perfect example of that was in the Jack Eichel goal against the Devils on Saturday. Nico Hischier wins the faceoff clean back to Severson, but Severson isn't quick enough to get rid of the puck. Stick gets lifted, puck gets back out to Eichel, and it's 2-0 Sabres. And it's just, again, another example of the defense just gonna get rid of the puck. It's on your stick, it's out. Just zoom it around. A winger will be at the other side to collect it, boom, out of the zone. But instead, gets a stick lifted, puck goes in the net, and then he looks around seeing if there should have been a call. No, your stick got lifted, the puck got stolen, you weren't quick enough. Did you not expect Hischier to win it back? I don't know, but the puck should have been out of the zone, and the goal is avoided.
And we're going to throw in the what tonight's score should be, and also we might predict who will score those goals and assists. So give me your possible, Devils score, and who do you think scores tonight?
All right. So I think Wayne Simmons gets a point or two tonight. He's playing against his old team. He's going to be fired up to play against them. I think I can see him get a goal tonight. I can see Coleman getting another goal tonight, just the way he plays, gritty. And I like one of the members of the top line to score tonight as well. Either Hall, Hischier, or Gusev.
Here's my prediction. So I have Wayne Simmons with a Gordie Howe hat trick, because there's going to be a fight.
Definitely.
He's going to get an assist on a power play.
Okay.
And then there's going to be a nice gritty goal where he's going to be celebrating like the House of Pain. Jack Hughes gets a goal thanks to an assist from Wayne Simmons. And then you have a little bit of help from PK Subban on that Jack Hughes goal. And then Miles Wood scores because he's had a good history against Philadelphia. And the fourth goal, I predict, will be coming from Travis Zajac.
Okay. Because Zajac has had good history against the Flyers as well, so I could see Zajac on the board. So you're saying Devils get 4 tonight, and some Flyers on the board, or no?
I think what happens is Schneider holds them to no more than 2 goals.
Okay.
Because I have a feeling that Konechny's going to score, and I have a funny feeling that Provorov is going to score.
Okay. So I think the Devils will win too. I think it's gonna be a 3-2 game or a 4-3 kind of hockey game tonight.
Because it sounds like the Flyers will pull their goalie and get that empty net goal, but it comes a little too late.
Right, exactly.
That's just me trying to sense something.
Yeah, I think the Devils are gonna come out strong tonight. I really do. They laid a goose egg in Buffalo. They were embarrassed. Ajax said they were embarrassed on home ice, embarrassed on the road. They don't want to get embarrassed on national television. I think they're going to come out strong.
And they want Doc to feel like he's a member of the Devils again, which he will always be.
Yeah, and just to have Emmerich there calling the game. I like the Devils to win tonight. Close one, though.
And also, you talked about Eddie O in the past, and it would certainly be great to see Eddie O and him and Doc have a grand old time tonight. And hopefully things, regardless of how right or wrong we are, we just want to see a win.
Yeah, I mean, there's no ranking system. This isn't college football. A win is a win no matter how you get it. And it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be, or it could be the ugliest win ever. Doesn't matter. Still a W.
I know
matters.
I know on YouTube, the hockey guy already started doing his power rankings within the first few games of the year.
Too early to do power rankings. 2 games in.
I don't honestly I don't like doing power rankings because it's unfair to everyone else. Within the first week of hockey, it makes absolutely no sense. We haven't seen the first 2 months completed yet, and who knows if the Devils and Flyers are the top 2 teams in the Metropolitan or the bottom 2. There's a lot that can happen between today and the last week of the season.
Yeah, and we don't know what's gonna happen. It's the first 2 weeks. I mean, it's the first week of the season. It's not even that. So this is the first week is in the season because last Wednesday was the first official start date of the 2019-20 season. So we're not even a week in, and we're already getting power rankings. Like, that doesn't make any sense. The Devils and Flyers, they could be completely different, opposite directions, same direction in 2 months' time from now.
Well, when you talk about that source of direction, it makes me think about, other teams' fans saying, oh, your guy's only 170 pounds and he hasn't scored yet. He looks very small. Have you seen this recent player named Patrick Kane when he was 170 pounds out of the U.S., scores a lot of points, a couple Stanley Cups? That could be Jack Hughes.
Yeah, exactly. It could be Jack Hughes. And speaking of, we talk about fan bases and, teams like, oh, yeah, we're off to a good start and this and that. Devil fans, great to talk to, but don't be criticizing other players when your guy hasn't done nothing. Like, I don't like calling out people, but, I'm listening to the game. I'm watching the game high above on Friday night, and I hear, and I'm walking around on a concourse in between periods, and somebody's like, Devils are, Kako last night. He didn't do nothing, but Hughes is going to do something tonight. I'm like, and it's through 2 periods. I'm like, dude, they're having the same game. They're having their first game in the National Hockey League, and they both look like rookies.
And they're supposed to be rookies, but they're going to be special rookies.
Exactly. And it's not like Hughes isn't going to get his points. He is. But adjusting to the NHL regular season is a lot different than playing in the preseason. So, like I said at the beginning of the year, temper expectations, but he will get up his points. But don't expect him to, be like Connor McDavid.
Elias
away.
Pettersson.
Yeah, I mean, Pettersson, be like, I think his name, I think he wants to be called Peterson now. These guys with their pronunciations are, every other week they change it. So regardless, Elias Pettersson, whatever you call him, he had a great rookie year. If you could put up points like him, you'll be fine.
And like, I hate calling people out, but like, even Ranger fans, it always sounds like when they start winning in the first few weeks or whatever, it always acts like they won a Stanley Cup in October. Meanwhile, I tell them, all you want now, but the Stanley Cup is in summer.
Yeah.
And when was the last time you touched it?
What was the last time they touched it? 94?
Yeah. And I said, you're basically in the same basket as the Montreal Canadiens in 1993.
Yeah, so nobody's been talking. You can't be talking smack. You have no right to talk smack.
I don't like the idea of other fans talking smack to other fans because it's just bad karma, and we're all hockey fans. We should be respecting one another, but at the same time, we all love our teams, but you don't put down other fans. It's not kosher.
No, it's not, and I completely agree. Don't be knocking other fan bases. Don't be knocking each other. I mean, you guys want to have intelligent conversations, go for it. But, again, you don't win the Stanley Cup in October, but you could sort of put yourself in a position to not make the playoffs in October. And the Devils, if you can get through this little stretch right here, maybe turn things a little around a bit, 180 degrees, and put things going in the right direction, that's just a good step.
And we just need the team to jump right off the diving board and take a nice dive from the deep end and to get into the shallow end, and things would be a lot better. Because the whole team will be afloat once they hit their stride. And, it's better to swim than sink. And we want to see the guys perform tonight, take their responsibilities and distribute their own weight in scoring and playing defense and making Corey look almost invincible. You also want to take the pressure off your own fans and show that you can perform on these big occasions. And we want to see the old Rodney Dangerfield effect of getting no respect from the media and cashing in at the right opportunity.
Well, that's when the Devils play their best. When they get no respect from the media and they get no respect from around the league, that's when they're dangerous. When no one expects them to be a contender, that's when they show up. But when the expectations are on them, that's when they falter. So, like I said, did we overestimate this team's ability at the beginning of the year? I don't think so. It's just things have not gone the right way in the first two games, and they just have to fix the things that they're missing on are fixable. They really are.
And I think, a few weeks later, if this team picks up a bunch of wins, we should be laughing at ourselves in these sound bites. And everyone goes, why did you have that last episode like that? Or why did you do this overreactions and reality checks episode? But this is us keeping everyone in check. Nothing's daisies and roses.
No, it's not. And, people say calm down. Or I remember a great quote from Aaron Rodgers, NFL, Green Bay, when Green Bay was struggling. He said, Aaron says relax. They made it a T-shirt. Everybody says calm down. But, we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we weren't critical and having episodes like this, because everybody else is. And, everybody's like, oh, coach ain't going to get fired after 2 games and this and that. It's just, you have to look at things. You have to look at things from multiple views and have multiple lenses. You have your fan glasses, you have your GM glasses, your media glasses, but you have to put them on. You got to start put pieces together and looking at things that make the most sense. And when the team struggles and they get off to slow starts and, the system is not working well, you have to start to think, okay, what's the next move? And where do they go from here? And how do they execute it? And, to me, you had all this time in the preseason and in the training camp to see what line combinations will work, what line combinations won't work, who plays with who, putting a system involved. And that's just the thing that is just, doesn't make me mad, but it's just a poor execution on stuff that could be that should have been fixed and should have been worked on in training camp.
And at the same time, ownership expects results. And, they know Ray Shero is going to hold, someone's feet to the fire. And, we, the fans and whatnot, expect to see the right moves at the right time. And we wish nothing negative. We just want to see the positive business moves that make the team better. The team has evolved from so many years of, downfalling and being built from an AHL team to a highly skilled caliber team. But we need the right guy who's going to manage these players to their best potential.
Yeah. And you don't want to have the same message being lost in the shuffle, guys tuning it out, guys not caring, because sometimes that does happen, and you saw that around the league last year, especially. Doesn't matter. It's a win now. League. It's what have you done for me lately?
And it's more like, fans want to see results, and even myself, like, when we write about the team, we want to see, the execution of, the play, the nice, crisp, clean passes that we saw in preseason used in the regular season. And how can we dissect the Philadelphia Flyers, the Rangers, the Capitals? How are we going to catch all these teams off guard? Meanwhile, we've come off 2 games slumping.
Yeah, and the Metro Division, the way it is, Carolina's the real deal. Their defense is solid. Their goaltending is solid. That team is no fluke, and they're off to a great start. Can you take advantage of a team like Pittsburgh?
With the Evgeny Malkin deal.
You got Malkin's injured. He could be out a couple of months. You got Bukestad hurt. They're looking to trade a defenseman to maybe get some offense. And that defense is already weak as it is. You have the Rangers. They're off to a hot start. They'll come back to earth a little bit. The Islanders, not sold there. Columbus, they're one of the weaker teams, but they played well against Buffalo. Philly's in the mix. New Jersey. Washington seems to be the only team. Washington, Carolina seem to be the only 2 teams rising to the top right now.
And there's so much to really dissect, and it's so early that within the after American Thanksgiving, we'll get a much even clearer result from the lab as an idea of think of it as just it's like test results.
Yeah, and you want to be in that playoff position come American Thanksgiving. We've harped on it before. You want to be in a playoff position. You need to be in a playoff position because if you're not, there's only a handful of teams each season that aren't in that position that make the playoffs.
And St. Louis was that team in the West that made it.
Right.
And that was a miracle.
Oh, I mean, no one has ever seen it, and you're probably not going to ever see it again. But then again, it goes to show you the weakness of the Western Conference at the bottom, the wild card, because those teams didn't put the pedal to the metal and separate themselves enough. And speaking of overreaction, is an overreaction down in Tampa, where Tampa's struggling. And Stamkos has come out and said what he said about how the team, is relying on their talent to win, and they're making the same mistakes that they made that led to their early playoff exit against the Columbus Blue Jackets, which spoiled their season last year.
It was the lack of depth showing up to play playoff style hockey, which is a different brand. And, to think about it, now, thinking about the fantasy hockey side, I notice a lot in the leagues that I've been playing in. A lot of fans have have sold off on Jack Hughes. And I am one of those people that when I draft a team, I keep that team as it is. I don't like selling off a guy unless I could trade for someone.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, look, you shouldn't be really, unless you're playing daily fantasy, you really shouldn't be making any moves unless you have guys that are hurt. Because everybody who plays the Yahoo leagues know that the first week is from the first Wednesday of the season through the second Sunday, and you shouldn't be making any moves right now. You shouldn't be selling off guys. Keep your team as is. You don't need to be making moves now.
Like for instance, I could have given up on Jack Hughes, but I know Jack Hughes from watching all his, his draft eligible hockey games and seeing his tournaments. I know what mechanic was capable. I'm not selling anytime soon on Blackwood. If he gets injured for long term, I'll cut him loose. But I like the potential in Blackwood, especially when he gets going. He is almost unstoppable.
Yeah, there's no reason to be selling off players right now, and you're doing the right thing. And I haven't sold off any of my players. There's no reason to. Hughes will get things going. Kako will get things going.
Cale
Blackwood,
Colorado.
will get things going. Don't worry about it. It's not the biggest deal that these guys got off the slow starts. It's not.
And people got to get rid of the fan glasses for a little while. They got to think about the long term instead of the short term. And, this is kind of like investing, but for hockey fantasy and, so forth. We want to keep our heads level and not overreact. But today is a reality check.
Yeah, it is. But if you wouldn't be doing you'd be doing an injustice if you weren't talking about, what needs to be fixed on the New Jersey Devils defensively and maybe offensively too, because like you and I said, you as somebody that writes about the team, your job is to question what goes on and why these things are made, because a skilled guy shouldn't be playing third line minutes. You should be playing up at the top of the lineup.
Like for instance, I could say when it was the off season and a lot of the smart moves were being made, I tend to contribute a lot more positive because of the evolution from the team before. But now, with the past few games, you're like, hold on a second. We got to show what was wrong in this play. We got to break down what happened. I mentioned the art of war and how, if it's the fault of the general, it's not the fault of the soldier in that time of battle. But this past game is a little bit of both of the management and the player side.
Yeah, and the players aren't executing on the ice, but is the staff putting in the right system to make players successful
and create the level of execution where we can see the team cash in at the right moments and get the right amount of points to sustain the chance at playoffs. And the team has to, they got to get over the humiliating parts and then be humble when they win and not get over cocky.
Yeah, you have to be humble. You want to do things right. Maybe this is a reality check for them. Maybe they aren't as good as they think they are, and they got to work harder. And that's the point of the article that I posted is that, you got talent, but, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work hard. And the Devils got to work hard. They always have, regardless of who they had on the team. I'm even going back to their championship teams, the teams that made things look easy. They still worked hard and they outworked the other teams. And that's what you got to do. And so much skill in this league. There's no nights off. And if you think there are, then you're going
to get eaten alive.
Exactly.
and there's a reason why you have to play 82 games and 60 minutes and plus. So if a player's not going to show up to play and put all of that gear on, you're doing a disservice to the fans. You're doing a disservice to the city you play in. You're doing a disservice to your family and all that. It's like when I would play, different recreational sports. When I put on that uniform, I felt, in place who I played for, and always had respect for, the town that I lived in. And so, when you have a kid like a Jack Hughes, he takes it to heart, playing for the Devils, for the city of Newark, for the state of New Jersey, and the tri-state area, and all the Devils fans in the universe. So, you want to see those players take it seriously.
Yeah, and you have to take it seriously. You can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna lax off here and there. No, you got to take it seriously, and these guys take it to heart, and they know. These players know when they screw up, and they know when they mess up. You could just see it in their looks, in their eyes when they get back to the bench, or when they're headed into the locker room at the end of the period. You just can tell that they're not happy with the way they're playing, or they know they could do things better.
Like that one game, I noticed there was a rerun, and I saw Jesper Bratt tapped on Wayne Simmons' shoulder.
Yeah.
Said, "Don't worry, guy. We got him. We got him. We
got
this.
him." And we need more of that. You need to have more positivity on the bench. When a goal happens, you can't see everybody go down, or when they're down by 2, you can't see the air come out. You got to keep trucking because no lead is safe in this game.
And like we saw on opening night, there's no such thing as that safe lead that you are mentioning. And, when you have so many skilled forwards on a team and still just enough effective defense, being backed by a really good goaltender who's not even maybe a top 5 or top 10, there's a chance of an upset, and we got upset in our own building.
Yeah, and you want to call it up. Some people call it an upset, because they're up 4-0. But go roll back the tape. I said the Winnipeg Jets would give the Devils a much harder time than people thought. And I was even asked that on a Mike Rich show up on Mississauga the day of the game. Dave Bastel, Mike Rich had me on. We're talking, and Bastel's like, "Oh, so how bad is the Jets going to beat up on your Devils?" And I laughed. We all had a good chuckle, but I was saying, I said, look, the Jets are going to give the Devils a lot harder time than people think. I thought the Devils were still going to win the game, but I thought it was going to be a lot closer than people thought it was going to be. And at first, I was going to eat my words. Devils up 4-0, but then I see the Jets come climbing back. So you got to play a full 60 minutes, and doesn't matter who the team is. Doesn't matter what their record is. Any team could beat any other team on any given night, and that goes regardless of sport.
Yeah, and for me, it's one of those things that, regardless if you're playing the Ottawa Senators or the New York Rangers, you still have to take every enemy that you go up against each game on ice. You got to take it, the smart way and not the wrong way, because when you undermine your opponent, you undermine yourself.
Yeah, and that goes in life, war, hockey, doesn't matter. Don't underestimate your opponent. Just because they have injuries, just because they're beat up, doesn't mean they're not going to come out and try to outwork you and outplay you. You saw that last night in Winnipeg and Pittsburgh. Yeah, both teams beat up. Well, guess what? The Jets are not going to let the fact that their defense has only played 6 NHL regular season games come out and not be effective.
And it ain't over until the goal song plays and the win song plays. So that's why, we're there to see the games live on TV or in person. And tonight, with that being said, we got almost 2+ hours until puck drop. And we would like to see something very positive happen, and let's see if it will.
Yeah, I'm looking for positivity here. I'm looking for what adjustments have been made by the Devils. I want to see them come out strong. I want to see them firing on all cylinders. I'm looking forward to the game tonight. I can't wait to see, how they play. I want to see the bench fired up. I'm just ready for the game tonight, to be honest. I'm just ready. I'm just ready for a hockey game tonight. I watched a lot. I watched the late games last night because it was on the rink from about 8:00 to 9:30 last night. So I'm ready to watch this game. Sit down. Weather's crummy. What better?
Yeah.
It's a great night for hockey. Just watch the game. See, take positive things out of it.
This is actually like my first lazy day in like a week, so it's like one of those things like last week when I got up to the pre-game, just going to Edison Place, seeing the post fan fest, just seeing PJ Ryans and Reds all beer steins empty and everything. Just you see everyone lined up to get into the Rock for the opening anthems and ceremonies and all that, and then getting to hear Arlette sing and getting the game on, and it's just it felt like hockey missed once again.
Yeah, and tonight, put the pregame on, listen about this rivalry, get ready for Green Day to bring it in. It's just gonna be a fun game tonight between the Devils and the Flyers, an old school Patrick Division rival. These two teams don't like each other, and you're going to see it in the play tonight.
It's going to be probably more exciting than Monday Night Football wrapped in one. And
yeah, that game is bad.
And I will put this out there on the line. Green Day, I always listened to them when they were the goal song for the Vancouver Canucks back in 2011 Stanley Cup playoffs, even though they lost to Boston. I still remember Burroughs having one of those good goals, and Green Day, doing something big for, the NHL, for Wednesday night hockey rivalry. It's a great testament for their music being prevalent in the NHL itself.
Yeah, I really like that Green Day's there. One of my favorite bands. I'm liking the fact that NBC got rid of this rivalry night stuff and call it just Wednesday night hockey. Better because sometimes half the time the teams that we're playing weren't rivals. So this is gonna be a fun night of hockey, and NBCSN got the game. I believe game will be on. If you have Sirius XM, you can hear it on the radio call or stream. I believe you can stream the radio on the internet through the Devils website.
Yeah, and of course the Devils app. You can listen to that. Also, when I tell people, the first time they learn about hockey and they're, getting used to learning advanced English, I always tell them about Doc Emmerich. Like, he's a living thesaurus plus someone that makes your spine shake, when he calls a play. Like, I remember when he was doing the Vancouver games, he was talking about how the Americans scored, and he goes, Kessler scored! That was one of those, spine, shaking goals. If you go on YouTube, type in Doc Emmerich, Vancouver, USA goal, Ryan Kessler, Kesler.
Yeah, that was a great game. That was a fun game. I never forget that game. That was a great Olympics. Unfortunately, the result wasn't what the USA hoped for, but it was still it was a great game. Great game to watch. And Doc brings that excitement to the game. And if the Devils do score, you might hear his voice go a little higher just because of the fact that was one of the teams he started out with.
I would hope Chico Rash is somewhere right behind Mike Doc Emmerich, because he's a former Flyer and he's a former Devil and he's a Devils radio host. And maybe he's there, you just never know. And they might bump into each other. They might have, a little something in between, the game. It just, I know I'm reminiscing, but having Doc and Chico, it's like having that high school nerd who's so smart and so good at telling you the story and the facts. And Chico's like that silly guy that loves to eat and say, "Oh my God, do you remember that?" Like, that's
Yeah.
that special combo that these two guys brought us Devils fans for so long.
Yeah. Just to, I was just scrolling through Twitter right now, and this quote kind of reminisce something. Maybe the Devil players need to hear this, because last night the Stars were not playing a good game against the Washington Capitals, and Mike Heika quotes Jim Montgomery. He says, "At the bench, I turned to Jamie Benn and told him the coaches aren't going in for you. This is your locker room. If we're going to do something, you've got to will these guys out of this." So that's where your captain, that's where your leader, that's where your star players got to come in, and the coaches aren't going to go in for you. They're not playing the game for you. Though if a guy like Scott Stevens was there, he might decide, hey, screw this. I'm going in. I'm going to show you guys how this is done. But this is where the leaders got to step up and be like, look, enough of this. We're better than this. We can play better. Now let's go prove it. And don't worry about it. It's only 2 games.
And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if PK Subban and Taylor Hall led something like that, pregame, and do a fired up type of attitude and get this team, the right set of character going. And when you have that, strong, charismatic, feel in the locker room before the game, during the game, it sets a tone. It shows that you're battle ready. When you are ready to take the field or take the ice, once your skates hit the ice, it's go time. It is 2 points on the board to take.
Yeah. And Devils got to get 2 points tonight. And you don't want to fall out of things too quickly, let things spiral. You want to be right in the mix from the word go.
And you're going to hear the announcer go, "Are you ready?" And you're going to hear the blow of the whistle, puck is dropped, green light, go.
Yeah, and it's going to be boom, puck's dropped, ready to go, and it's time to play.
And by the time this podcast is done, we're already talking about, the same thing going against Edmonton. Or
yeah,
maybe even more exciting with the puck movement.
Yeah, just get ready to play. And this is a great thing about back-to-backs. Wins and losses, yeah, you win, great. You got momentum building in. Don't let the losses carry over. Figure out a way to stop the bleeding, because the last year the Devils couldn't figure out where to stop the bleeding. They win 1, lose 4, win 1, lose 3. Look, you lost 2. Time to win a lot.
Time to win at least 3 to 5.
Right.
I would put in that ratio. But anyways, we don't know how to wrap up a show, but we have so much fun on this thing. It's too fun.
Yeah, exactly. I was requested by a friend of mine to give a shout out for an event that's happening at Prudential Center at the Barnabas Health Hockey House. It's going to happen on November 2nd at 8:30. Doors open at 8:15. Tickets are $10. It's going to be the First Responders versus the Bravest charity hockey game. It's benefit Tunnels to Towers organization. Entry's free. And it's going to be fun. Make a donation to charity. And you might, if you do come down, you might see me be playing in the game. I've been told to keep the date open. Besides promoting the event, I was told to keep the date open and make sure I'm not busy that night.
And also, don't forget, we have this on the Jersey Joe Corner podcast group on Facebook, and you'll see it there. Jim linked it last night, and we're going to be posting it. 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 And we For those who you are listening out there on Anchor.fm, we're also on Breaker. We are also on Apple Podcasts, and I'm very thankful for Apple Podcasts for allowing us on, with our SS feed. And it's also great for our listeners on Spotify and wherever you're listening. Thank you for your support, and we're happy that you're tuning in.
And just get ready for us. Next episode. I wanted to get some questions out there on my Facebook and Twitter, but time and work gets in the way. So, but our next episode, I'm going to make sure I get questions. Let you guys know.
We're on Twitter.
We're on Twitter. That we're going to be, having a podcast, and we want your questions, and we want you to, fire the hard ones at us, because those are the best ones to answer.
And they're more fun, and they make us think harder than, just seeing the ones that are put out by beat writers as well. So
exactly. So make us think. I hope everybody enjoys the game tonight. It's going to be a fun one between the Devils and the Flyers. And, there's a late game tonight as well. That's on Sportsnet. If you're able to get that game, check it out. Kings in Vancouver. Also, the Montreal Canadiens play the Buffalo Sabres tonight. Former Devil Keith Kincaid will get the start in that one.
And for those of you who can't watch any of the highlights, if you don't have regular TV, use YouTube and go to the NHL condensed games. They have highlights, and it helps you watch it in a short amount of time. And it makes you understand what we go through when we analyze for a podcast, and, how we take notes mentally and written. So for those of you who are going to watch tonight's game and tomorrow night's game, we'll see you on the next podcast.
Yes, we will. And for those of you that be in attendance for tomorrow night's game, find us. We're very approachable. We don't bite.
We welcome all.
We welcome everybody. So everybody enjoy the games tonight. It has been a pleasure, as always, bringing you the latest and greatest information around the New Jersey Devils and the National Hockey League, breaking down everything. And we'll see you on the next episode.
See you there, people. Let's go,
Peace.
Devils.
Let's go, Devils.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.